Welcome back. It's Ed Martin here, and again, the president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. It's time to do some fact-checking of Mrs. America, the $50 million series over on Hulu, streaming on Hulu by FX. And, you know, with $50 million, you would have thought that the writers and producers, like the famous Cate Blanchett, who also stars in it, that they might have done the research to find out exactly what's going on. Well, they didn't. Please go to realmrsamerica.com, find out more about what we found as we've dug into Mrs. America, the series, and also all of the information about Phyllis and her life and her career. That's all found at realmrsamerica.com. Please like and share this and subscribe right down below so we can spread these videos out. You know, the famous debate between Brenda Fasteau and her husband and Phyllis Schlafly and her husband has gotten a lot of attention. In fact, we get more people asking about the debate because we have the actual tape of the debate. Mrs. America made some fictionalized version and hasn't released any of the footage that we have. And we're going to show you today how Mrs. America was lying about very specific instances. In fact, they were not just telling an untruth, it was the opposite that was true, which is fake Brenda Fasteau in this movie, in Mrs. America, said that Phyllis Schlafly made up a court case and made a big deal out of teasing her about it. Well, watch this clip about the first case it mentioned in the actual debate between Brenda Fasteau and her husband and Phyllis Schlafly and her husband. Watch this.
Not at all.
There is no other way to enforce
the state is going to interfere or that a court will intervene.
They do it all the time.
That's not true. That's absolutely not true.
They enforce the marriage contract, and the marriage contract is to support your wife and children and family. And there are lots of non-support laws in the state. You don't have to be a separation.
Refuse to intervene in an ongoing marriage
to compel husbands to do their duty. All the states have that. It's both criminal and civil.
Well, the controlling case is our Carson Perry Scott case in Illinois.
I love that case.
Thank you for raising it. We were wishing that you would.
This was a case where a woman bought $739 worth of...
For a coat, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was necessaries for herself and her child.
It's been revised since your last television show.
That's another case. There's so many cases.
You're thinking of the Berman case. That's a different case.
We don't have time to cite them all in ongoing marriages.
Could we hear about this one case and then we will... All right.
She bought the necessaries at Carson Perry Scott.
She could have bought them at Marshall Fields or at Sotheby's or anywhere else.
But that's what she bought.
Yeah, okay.
And her husband said he didn't authorize the charge account and he thought she was adequately provided for. It was an ongoing marriage. There was no divorce at all. The court said, too bad, he's the husband, he has to pay.
It's Phyllis that brings up this case. It's Carson, Scott and Company v. Hyde. It's a real case from 1968, and just as Phyllis said, John Hyde was forced to pay for necessities purchased by his wife. Marc and Brenda Fasteau are getting confused with another case. In other words, they're not getting it right. The case they're thinking of is called Berman Company, Inc. v. Dahlberg. It's from 1948, and that's another case where a husband was required to pay for his wife's expenses. Let's watch Marc. Marc jumps in here. He's a big lawyer, too. Watch him explain another case. Watch this.
Now, regarding the store where the woman went and bought the $739 worth of what she called necessaries.
Right. Look, the basic point about necessaries...
And the fact that the court said the man must pay for that.
That's right. There is another case which is just, in fact, is better known from the Nebraska Supreme Court called McGuire versus McGuire, where a farmer refused to provide his wife with a kitchen sink, with money for clothes, with a bathroom, a toilet, and she tried to get him to pay for them under this doctrine of necessaries, and the court said no. Now, you know, maybe the ordinary case is somewhere in between. The basic point is that the Equal Rights Amendment would not do away with this doctrine. It would require whichever spouse was out in the world working and making the money to comply with this doctrine. To the extent that it's now effective only against the husband, it would become effective against a wife who is working.
Now, this is pretty funny. I mean, Marc Fasteau is tripping all over himself. First, he says that courts won't and don't make husbands support their wives. That's what he says. Courts don't make husbands support their wives. Then he says husbands do have to support their wives, but ERA won't change that. Make up your mind, old Marc. Make up your mind, man, and you better check the cases. McGuire v. McGuire is a real 1953 case. It's a court case, and Marc is trying to spin the case to tell you something it doesn't. And watch this next clip Fred Schlafly jumps in to cut short Marc and make sure we actually know what is going on and set him straight. Watch this clip, Fred Schlafly in action.
Some of the many
Well,
other...
let's just take that Nebraska case a second now. That was one where...
Although I would like to get away from marriage and relationships in a marriage between men and women and go on to social relationships.
All right, let me just add one sentence on that. In that case, this farmer lived like an Amish. He didn't believe in modern improvements way back in 1920, and he was something of a miser, and she married him knowing he was a miser. And the court held, well, you knew his penurious habits when you married him, and so that's the way it has to be.
The moral of that is don't marry a man to reform him.
There you have it. I guess you'd say from the pros. Phyllis Schlafly and her husband Fred, they knew Marc Fasteau's case better than he did. They were correcting the record, and of course, when you go back and look at the record, they're right. You know, I'm still looking for what Mrs. America asserted and the fake Brenda asserted, the case that Phyllis made up. You know, there's only one other court case mentioned in the entire Fasteau-Schlafly debate. And here's a clip so you can hear for yourself about that case.
Well, in the recent case in Georgia, the court simply said alimony is unconstitutional, too bad for the woman, didn't extend it to the man, just took away the right from the woman.
Murphy v. Murphy, it's another real court case from Georgia in 1974. Just like Phyllis said, a lower court in Georgia held that alimony is unconstitutional because it discriminates against husbands. Her point, and the point back then and continuing today, is ERA would do that nationwide. That was the impact. That was the truth. That's the facts of the cases, not the spin from Mrs. America and not the lies of fake Brenda. You know, at the end of the day, every single court case mentioned in the famous debate, the actual footage, which we have in our archives at the Phyllis Schlafly Center in the heart of America in St. Louis, Missouri, every single court case mentioned, we've gone back and reviewed the debate tapes. Every case mentioned is real. Phyllis never made anything up. Fred never made anything up. In fact, Brenda and Marc were kind of scrambling. Mrs. America knew this. The producers knew the real debate, and they could have gotten it right. They could have told the truth, but they rewrote it to make Phyllis Schlafly look bad. It's Hollywood. It's not history. It's fake. It's not true. And it does a huge disservice to so many people that watch a $50 million production and wonder exactly what the truth is, or should. Maybe they believe the wrong thing. Please be sure to share this and like this. Pass it on to other people. You can subscribe right down here. We take a lot of time to look at the record and get the facts out because we want you to know what's the real Mrs. America. We'll talk again soon.